Tonight on CBC Vancouver News.
I need to go to London Drugs, but the London Drugs is closed.
London Drugs under cyber attack.
Couldn't go in because their computers don't work, or I guess their system.
The BC-based drugstore shutters all 80 locations and positions pharmacy staff out front to help customers. Plus,
into overtime, and the Canucks have done it.
Canucks fans still riding that Game 4 high.
But it was a pretty darn exciting 4 minutes of hockey to get 3 goals.
We hear your playoff rituals ahead of the game that could send Vancouver to the next round.
We always had our jerseys on to watch the games, yeah.
And the towels. We always try to collect all the towels.
This is CBC Vancouver News.
Hello, I'm Tanya Fletcher. Thanks for joining us, and we begin with breaking news. A man has been arrested in connection with a deadly stabbing in White Rock last week. 26-year-old Kulvinder Singh Sohi died from his injuries along the promenade Tuesday night. It was the second stabbing in that area along the waterfront in 3 days and has left the community on edge. Now, the Integrated Homicide Investigation Team says a 28-year-old man from Surrey is in custody. We'll bring you the latest details on this story as it develops. A cyber attack has closed each and every London Drugs in the country. For the second straight day, customers have been greeted with locked doors and signs saying the stores are closed because of an operations issue. As John Hernandez is finding out, the BC-based company says customer and employee data appear to be safe and the closures precautionary.
I need to go to London Drugs, but the London Drugs is closed.
Confusion outside this typically busy London Drugs in Vancouver. Customers running into locked doors while the store's managers tell them that systems are down.
I couldn't go in because their computers don't work.
It was the same story outside all London Drug stores after the company announced it shuttered its doors because of a cyber attack. The incident was first noticed by the company on Sunday. In a statement released Monday, a spokesperson said, quote, "Upon discovering the incident, London Drugs immediately undertook countermeasures to protect its network and data, including retaining leading third-party cybersecurity experts to assist with containment, remediation, and to conduct a forensic investigation. Some customers startled by the security lapse."
It's good that they shut them down just to prevent any more data leaks, but it's not good that technology allowed us to get this far.
London Drugs said it had no reason to believe customer or employee data were affected.
What they might not know is how they got into the network, and that might be part of the reason why they've shut down the stores and the access to the stores.
This cybersecurity expert says pharmacies and other medical centers are becoming an increasingly bigger target for hackers.
Now we're seeing increasing interest in taking medical data because that's really the most sensitive personal data that we have. And that data is being then sold on the dark web and for all intents and purposes laundered and then potentially resold.
As of Monday afternoon, the company said it would temporarily take down its phone lines as part of its investigation. It said pharmacists will remain on site to help with urgent pharmacy needs. There's no timeline for reopening. John Hernandez, CBC News, Vancouver.
Mass demonstrations over the war in Gaza have sprung up on university campuses across the continent, and now they've reached BC. An encampment in solidarity with Palestinians now covers part of UBC's Vancouver campus. As Michelle Gassoub tells us, students there say they are ready to stay until their demands are met.
Under morning darkness at the University of British Columbia, tents were erected and signs hung. This encampment, the first of its kind in Western Canada.
We're here, and we're not leaving until the changes have been made. You want to call them demands, you call them whatever you want.
The students here challenging UBC to cut ties with 3 Israeli universities and divest from companies profiting from the war.
Firstly, we are calling for the university to divest from its affiliations with Israeli companies and companies that are weapons companies and are other companies complicit in the genocide. We are also calling for an academic boycott.
I think it is important to stand in solidarity. I think it is important to show up. as members of the Jewish community who want to say, not in our name.
For weeks, there has been a mass mobilization of students at universities across the U.S. In some cases, rallies have ended in violent arrests.
I have no reason to doubt that the leadership, both student and administration at UBC, will find that balance between ensuring students are safe and making sure that that atmosphere of free exchange of ideas can continue to take place on campus.
The students here advising against engaging with what they call counter-protesters or agitators.
Now, this encampment is quite organized. They have a library, they have a location where you can drop off food donations, they have speeches that you can probably hear behind us. And everyone who walks into this encampment is welcomed by someone and handed a list of 10 community agreements. These are the rules that you are expected to follow if you are going to participate in this encampment. And on that list is a zero tolerance policy for any form of discrimination. That includes anti-Semitism and Islamophobia. So organizers here very much setting a tone for the behavior they expect for anyone who is going to be participating in this encampment.
UBC said in a statement it values freedom of expression, and all those at the encampment are expected to follow the UBC Code of Conduct. It said it would be liaising with RCMP, though there was no visible police presence at the campus on Monday.
There comes to a point where we have to take these risks and stand for what we believe in.
Day one of a movement that promises to stay as long as it takes. Michelle Gassoub, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, the province is looking for proposals for 8 new housing developments to be built on public land. It's part of the government's move to fast-track more rental homes for middle-income households.
These are sites that are owned by local governments. It's public land. They've done their part. They've pre-zoned this to make sure that construction can start right away on these projects. For multi-unit housing, that cuts down the costs of construction and the uncertainty and ensures that timelines are faster, building the housing that we need sooner.
This project is part of the BC Builds Plan, which was launched in February. The sites are in Kamloops, Kelowna, Elkford, Sooke, North Cowichan, and the township of Langley. The Vancouver School Board is set to vote tonight on restricting the use of cell phones in schools. If approved, consideration would still be given to students who use their phones for accessibility reasons. The motion was filed by School Board Chair Victoria Jung. She argues the board has a responsibility to provide healthy and safe learning environments.
Our job is to keep kids safe. What does that look like? Well, it looks like a lot of things to us. And it's not just physical, keeping kids from having fights at recess. It's actually looking at all the different aspects of their learning and their development. And that includes social media and access to digital devices.
The motion comes after the BC government said in January that it was taking steps to limit cell phones in all schools province-wide in order to help protect young people from online threats. Well, the province, meanwhile, might have tried to change the channel on drug decriminalization, but that topic is still a hot-button issue at the legislature. As Mira Baines explains, the proposal to recriminalize drugs in public spaces is seen by the opposition as a failure and simply doesn't go far enough.
Oral questions by members.
More calls from the opposition in the BC legislature to end decriminalization, just a little over 1 year into a 3-year pilot. BC United leader Kevin Falcon says he doesn't believe the changes the province has asked for will reduce public safety issues with the program.
It will make no difference just because in the Premier's own statement he said it will not apply to tent cities, it will not apply to supportive housing projects. I mean, these are some of the places in where much of that chaos is spreading into surrounding communities.
Falcon says drugs should be stigmatized. There are also questions over research into the pilot project and whether it's still worthwhile, given that a change to the program could make it difficult to evaluate its success or failure. Premier David Eby defended the move to recriminalize small amounts of illicit drugs in all public spaces and said valuable overdose data is being collected. He defended decriminalization as a way to destigmatize drug use so people can seek help.
We have asked the federal government to ensure that police have the tools they need to make sure that our parks and our playgrounds, business doorways, downtowns are safe and welcoming for everybody. But we've specifically asked the federal government to continue to ensure that people are encouraged to use overdose prevention sites.
Eby says he has spoken to the Prime Minister about the issue. Federal Mental Health and Addictions Minister Yara Sachs says no decision has been made yet.
We are reviewing the request to the exemption that they put forward to us. We're sitting with Health Canada officials at this time, but we are wholeheartedly committed to continue to work with BC.
Toronto has also requested an exemption from Health Canada, although Ontario Premier Doug Ford has asked for the request to be dropped. Mira Baines, CBC News, Victoria.
The federal Conservatives, meanwhile, are critical of what they call delays on this and are calling on the Trudeau government to quickly grant BC's request.
That the Trudeau government needs to be held accountable to parliamentarians and are calling on the government to grant this emergency take note debate immediately.
Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre has repeatedly called decriminalization a dangerous experiment and says a Conservative government would pull out of harm reduction strategies. The Tories say they would focus on a recovery-oriented approach, such as connecting people struggling with addiction to housing and detox center options, which is already being done in BC at safe consumption sites. A temporary policy that allowed international students to work more than 20 hours per week off campus will end tomorrow. This comes as the federal government clamps down on a surge of international student enrollments across the country. The immigration minister says Canada's rules on work hours need to be in line with other countries, or more people will apply with the intent to work rather than to study. And as of this fall, international students will only be able to work 24 hours a week off campus. That's 3 full 8-hour shifts. A court hearing that may finally decide the future of policing in Surrey has kicked off. The city wants a Supreme Court judge to overturn a provincial order forcing the city to transition to a municipal police force. Our Jason Proctor spoke with Dan Burritt about the hearing and how we got to this point.
Back in 2018, former Mayor Doug McCallum was elected with a promise to transition Surrey from the RCMP to a municipal force. In 2022, Brenda Locke was elected on a promise to do exactly the opposite. And so the transition had already begun. The city of Surrey asked the province if they can stay with the RCMP, and the province basically said last July, finally, no, you can't, and in fact, you have to transition over to a municipal force. And that order, that decision by Public Safety Minister Mike Farnworth, is what's at the heart of this proceeding, which is a judicial review. So they're basically, the city's asking to look at that decision, which they say is unreasonable and unfair.
And quickly, what did you hear in court today?
So basically, this was just the beginning. So it's the city of Surrey essentially saying, you know, this is unwarranted and it's not right. You know, it's unreasonable. It's unconstitutional, they say, because essentially you have the democratic will of the voters of Surrey, and you have another level of government undoing the mandate that they gave to their politicians, their council, to make this happen. And so those are some of the arguments that we're going to hear this week.
And lastly, how many days will this run?
It should go for about 5 days. You know, Mayor Brenda Locke was there as well today, along with several other councillors. So a lot of interest in this.
And let's say a happy Monday to our Darius Madavi. And Darius, it seems just like clockwork. The weekend ends full of rain, and here we are at work Monday, and the sunshine is out.
Yes, and I don't want to look too far into the future, but it looks like it's going to be the same story next weekend. We've got a very sunny week ahead. You can see here what we've seen recently has been most of that rain and that showery activity clearing out. We did get a little bit of snow on some of the mountains, even the local mountains over the weekend. And we did have some hail actually this morning in some places like Langley, as well as in other parts of the province like the Greater Victoria area and over in Kelowna. So widespread hail in many places, but that seems to be tapering off now, especially here on the coast. I wouldn't expect any hail or anything like that tomorrow. If we look ahead in terms of the fire danger over the next couple days, I'd expect it to stay relatively low. You'd notice that in the north, especially the northeast, which has been quite stubborn lately, we now have low fire danger once again, largely thanks to the fact that temperatures have dropped back down to around 0, and we've seen some actually pretty heavy snow, mostly snow, also a little bit of rain in that area, anywhere from 5 to 15 centimeters, actually. We'll get into that later this hour. But for now, keep in mind, most of those showers tapering off on the coast over the next day or so. We're just going to have really unsettled activity across the region, and then we start to build into those sunnier conditions across the province. Still a risk of a thunderstorm in some places, especially in the interior later this evening, as well as in the Fraser Valley, actually. But generally, calming down over the next couple days for what will be another sunny, mostly sunny day tomorrow with maybe just the tiniest bit of showers.
We will endure that, no doubt. Thanks so much, Darius. Talk soon. Hockey fans in the city are ecstatic after the Canucks managed to pull off a 3-1 series lead over the weekend. Edson Alberta went out to talk to fans about their reaction and their game day rituals.
Canucks have pulled ahead of the Predators in their first round series of the playoffs. Hopes are high, spirits are high. Let's talk to some fans. Are you a hockey fan?
We are. Are you?
I am a hockey fan. I have my Canucks nails on. So you're rooting for the Canucks?
Might be rooting for the Canucks. They break my heart. Every so often do they break you guys' heart.
Do you have any game day rituals that you adhere to?
No, not really. No.
No socks?
No socks, no superstitions, no nothing.
We always had our jerseys on to watch the games, yeah.
And the towels. We always try to collect all the towels. It's been a few years, but we finally came all the way over here from Gibson's to get a towel.
Yeah, pizza.
Pizza, so like every game you have pizza?
Yeah.
You buy a towel every playoff game?
Every playoff game.
Every time they make the playoffs, yeah, we got it.
We have assortment. Yeah.
Sometimes we go fancy, but like mostly Domino's. Yesterday was a fancy pizza, so maybe, yeah.
So fancy pizza next game too?
Yes, definitely. We're gonna keep to that.
So do you get pineapple pizza every time the Canucks are playing?
Sometimes change it up, but yeah, no. Usually it's staple.
What's the data? Like, do they win when you get Hawaiian?
I find they do, yeah.
I'm positive that second goal for Nashville was kicked in.
It was a dance move. It was just a little, boop.
A dance move?
Yeah, just a little shuffle.
But it was a pretty darn exciting 4 minutes of hockey to get 3 goals.
What was your favorite part of the game last night?
Oh, the overtime, the goal. It was just so cool.
Is it too soon to make any predictions for the playoffs?
The Canucks are going to win tomorrow, so then they'll have a little break before they hit the next round.
All right, predictions made. Thank you so much. Take care.
Cheers.
Well, if it's been a while since you sat down for a family meal, you are not alone. After the break, we'll hear more about the positive effects of sitting around the table together and how to make the most of that time. That's coming up next. Welcome back. Canada's average working age has never been older, but many working seniors don't realize their health benefits could significantly decrease once they turn 65. Our Georgie Smythe has more on the impacts of this new reality.
Even though Stephen Booth has passed his 65th birthday, life continues to surprise him. He didn't expect to be still working retail, and he didn't know that, even as he faced illness, he'd lose some of his group benefits.
During that time, depression hit me pretty bad. And so that was just one more thing on top of everything else.
The majority of Canada's private long-term disability plans only pay out to a person's 65th birthday. Even if they continue to work, it's in the fine print.
It's like one day to the next. And it's like, how can that be?
Because government disability plans generally pay less than private plans, it also means less money in Stephen's pocket.
We definitely see more concern about it in times like this.
The coverage ends at 65 because in the past, that's when most people would retire.
That goes back to the majority of plans, government plans and other plans that coordinate with the long-term disability that all end at 65. And that's because for most people, they're eligible to begin their retirement pension at that age.
But some people can't afford to stop working at 65, so they stay in their jobs despite the smaller compensation package. It happened to David Harvey.
From my last years of working, I can see that the employer did not pay me as much in pay and benefits as they provided to my colleagues who were one day under 65 years.
He says older workers shouldn't receive less compensation than their younger colleagues.
It's the first time in my life that I've really felt or understood viscerally what discrimination is about.
Ensuring Canada's workers over 65 would cost more, but as that cohort continues to grow, it's a challenge they say needs to be addressed. Georgie Smythe, CBC News, Vancouver.
Well, sitting down for a family meal sounds nice, but making it happen can often be more difficult than that, with many families juggling logistics like different work schedules, multiple after-school activities, different ages. So how important are family meals, and how frequently should we be sitting around a table together? Well, Georgia Middleton is a postdoc research associate at Flinders University in Adelaide, Australia, and a visiting scholar here at UBC. Welcome. Thank you for joining us. So let's talk more about this, Georgia. We understand you're at UBC researching the practice of how family meals have changed over time. Can you tell us a bit more about your research, and is this really a lost art?
Yeah, certainly. So my previous research has really looked at how family meals have changed over the last 3 decades, so from 1990 to 2020, particularly in Adelaide, South Australia, where I'm from. And so at the moment, I'm here in Vancouver conducting a study looking at how those experiences might be different or the same in Canada compared to in Australia. So yeah, really interesting study, and looking forward to finding out more.
Absolutely. And on that note, I don't know if you have any data to speak of yet, but how do you expect that the research in Vancouver or the results might differ from that in Australia?
Oh, I've got no idea. We're about to start recruitment, and I'm really excited to really start unpacking that. In the investigations that we looked at across time, there were lots of unexpected things that stayed the same and lots of things that changed that we weren't necessarily expecting. So I have my predictions of what we might see, but it'll be really interesting to see particularly things around the expectations on family meals, the tradition and the value, and what Vancouver parents are considering all the time, the food options, money, all of those sorts of things, and how that compares.
Yeah, no doubt. Is quantity or quality more important, would you say, when it comes to having family meals with young children, especially?
Such a good question, and something that we don't know the answer to yet. A lot of the research that's been conducted in this space really looks at frequency of family meals, so how often people are coming together to have family meals. And that quality and the environment of family meals is often actually overlooked because it's quite hard to measure. So when we look at the benefits of family meals, it's really hard to know what part of the family meal is beneficial. Is it just coming together and being with each other, 6-7 nights a week, or is it having 1 or 2 family meals a week where you really engage in social connection and interaction and really spend the time together?
I'm sure cell phones too. I mean, that's obviously a new thing in the past few decades, but perhaps that's really changed the dynamic. And even just you look at a nuclear family, maybe that your immediate family, but a lot of people, like students, don't have family, blood family here. So even with friends, I imagine that. Is that a similar effect, perhaps, of just having that communal meal together?
Oh, definitely. There's lots of research looking into just the shared aspect of eating a meal with other humans and what that does for us. And I've done this work with older populations as well, bringing together older adults to share meals together. So it definitely, that kind of one-on-one or group connection is really important. And phones can really get in the way of having that connection and having those conversations.
I know I've become more acutely aware with a toddler at home how important it is to have that quality time. What role has social messaging played in influencing, how people prioritize family meals overall?
Yeah, really big part. So I think, when we hear the words family meals, I'm sure we all kind of conjure up a similar sort of picture in our heads of everyone sitting around the table eating the same meal, enjoying that meal. Everything's really peaceful and really happy conversation. And that's what's portrayed in media, it's portrayed in television, it's also in health promotion as well. But family meals don't really look like that, and especially not in modern society where we're busy, we've got lots of things going on. Kids don't always want to sit down for 20 minutes at a table and eat the broccoli or eat the spinach that you're serving. So the unrealistic portrayals of family meals through the media and through our health promotion can cause a lot of guilt and a lot of feelings of failure and shame for parents who aren't able to live up to this kind of idealised expectation that we've created.
Interesting research for sure. We can't wait to find out the results. Thank you so much for your insight today.
Thank you.
That's Georgia Middleton, postdoc at University of Adelaide in Flinders, Australia, and visiting scholar at UBC. Still ahead with the Trans Mountain Pipeline extension soon to go online, we take a look back on the project's lengthy development. We'll hear from those still objecting to it and those who stand to gain. That's coming up after the break. Welcome back. The Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion is slated to come online May 1st, becoming Canada's only pipeline to the West Coast. But some First Nations leaders say they're concerned about pollution already impacting the land and wildlife.
My children will not experience what I experienced here. All the creeks, rivers, and streams, no more salmon. They're all polluted. This water, this beach is closed permanent. You know, they say, you know, it's so dirty. And so that's the impact of industry here.
The pipeline expansion ends in Burnaby, and the city says the safety of its residents should have been more closely considered.
80% of the risk is here in Burnaby. You know, this is where they load the ships. This is where they store the materials. 3 times what they used to store on Burnaby Mountain. And we don't think that there's been enough attention paid to the public safety issues that come along with this pipeline.
For a broader look at the impact of TMX, the CBC's Aaron Collins has been traveling the length of the project, hearing from those for and against a pipeline now built following decades of court challenges and protests.
From the air, it may not look like much, but on the ground, the Trans Mountain Pipeline expansion loomed large long before it was even built. Dividing Canadians into those who oppose the line and those who rallied to support it. So those protests have pretty much wrapped up now. The project has too. The expanded Trans Mountain line will now move almost 3 times as much oil as it did before. That got us wondering how people who live along that line feel about it. So our team packed up and hit the road, looking to travel the entire length of the Trans Mountain expansion. Quite the road trip. The line starts in Edmonton, heading west for about 1,000 kilometers. It crosses the Rockies, then heads south to Kamloops before heading west to the coast, finally stopping at Trans Mountain's marine terminal in Burnaby. The line starts here in the heart of oil country at this Edmonton tank farm, and long before you get to the coast, it passes through Gainford, Alberta. Population 118. Not counting the chickens. Around here, agriculture is many people's bread and butter, and those who don't farm often rely on pulling something else from the ground to get by.
A lot of people in this area, if they're not farming, they're working in oil and gas or used to be working in the coal.
Most people here more than okay with the line and the industry that supports it.
There's a balance for sure. I mean, we all have to eat, we have bills to pay, most of us drive cars. A lot of things rely on the oil and gas still, and until there are better alternatives in place for people that generally live in a rural environment, you have to step up and pay attention to the oil and gas.
But oil and gas comes with some risks. Pipelines do leak, spills do happen. The TMX line runs just along the other side of the highway here. Next to that is a train line. A derailment there about a decade ago caused an explosion, igniting oil cars and melting the siding off the house here. That close call makes the pipeline seem like a safer bet.
Something like a pipeline break or something like that is unlikely to happen. You're probably more likely to get hit by a car crossing the road. Yeah. So you got to put it all in perspective, right?
Doesn't keep you up at night.
No, the train.
Keeps you up at night. About an hour down the road is Edson, Alberta. The train station there, now a museum. This is an oil and gas town and the hub for the local construction of the TMX project. The benefits of all that building trickling down into every nook and cranny here, all the way to this local parts store.
Can you grab, you want 2? Can you grab 2 of those blue propane bottles?
There was a big bump in sales here while the line was being built. It meant more work for the 15 employees here and throughout the town.
We had a lot of business indirectly from the pipeline and the construction crews and everybody going through Edson's.
A business has come back down since construction of the line wrapped, but that's the way of things in the up and down world of oil and gas. And there's faith that the next big energy project will soon spark the economy again.
Okay, so parts like this, important for the oil and gas industry. How important is oil and gas to the economy around here?
Not just around here, but all of Alberta. The oil and gas touches every facet of every community in one way or another.
You can expect the same standards.
Thank you.
Now, like in most small towns, you get the real story over coffee.
You just take it black?
Yep.
Yeah,
I
me too.
learned that in the trucking years.
Yeah, I was a truck driver too.
Yeah.
Places like this diner were packed during construction, and there's a feeling here that the line will be good for the whole country too.
Well, honestly, we have to remember Canada is built on natural resources. So, I mean, like it or not, you know, where people will, well, we shouldn't do this. Alberta is, that's been our driver for years, is natural resources.
That's why when opposition to the line was at its highest in some parts of Canada, people here in Edson took to the streets.
Was it frustrating that you had to kind of like get that message out so vocally?
Well, it was frustrating to an extent, but as Albertans, we understand this. So where other people were opposed, we were just letting the other parts mean we're in favor of it, and this is why.
Heading west along the line, at least for now, support for the project remains strong. People can see and feel the impact of it up close. Places like Blue River, BC. Trans Mountain has long operated a facility here. The expansion meant lots of activity in a community where there isn't a lot going on. There's just a handful of kids enrolled at the local school. And like many small towns, every job matters.
Obviously, the building was a big source of revenues with all those workers in their communities. But as you continue to have maintenance crew, you'll have some permanent workers.
But the line is expected to have bigger impacts on the economy, too. More pipeline capacity to the coast means more customers for more Canadian crude, and that likely means a better price, too. And experts say that should benefit the broader Canadian economy.
It means a revenue of about $13 billion or so per year in new exports. Again, to put that in perspective, we exported about $125 billion of oil as Canada as a whole last year, so it will allow a big increase of about 10%.
A reminder that despite predictions that demand for oil could soon peak, this expansion is a reaction to a still growing appetite for fossil fuels. Construction began on the original line way back in 1952, fueled by demand for the large oil deposits found in Alberta in the 40s. Since it was built, Trans Mountain has always run through Kamloops, passing right by this dog park along the way. The park had to be closed during the twinning of the line, but it's open again.
She's known as the princess of the park, my dog. And I've had people drive by and yell, "Angie!"
People here used to the idea of their pups playing near the pipe.
I think that it's great that they twinned the pipe. Now we can actually move some oil safer. You know, it's old pipe, old technology. They didn't have the standards they have today when they put the pipe in. So I don't see any problem with it.
A positive spin, to be sure, but one gained through years of experience, living with the risks and benefiting from the rewards of the pipeline buried here.
Well, still ahead, the end of the world is trending, and Canadians are jumping on the bandwagon. After the break, we take a look at why apocalyptic content is everywhere. Oh, welcome back. Some of the most popular TV shows and movies out right now are all about the end of the world. In fact, apocalypse content is hotter than ever. The CBC's Eli Glasner explains why.
I just want to start.
I've had a rough week.
On the small and the big screen.
You watch. Soon as DC falls, they'll turn on each other.
Audiences can't get enough of apocalyptic scenarios.
The collapse is so near.
Holy Moses.
On We're All Going to Die, Canadian Jay Baruchel confronts his anxiety, exploring everything from killer bugs to AI run amok.
I don't know if you're like a news junkie, but the past 4 or 5 years have been quite colorful and eventful.
They could bring about the end of life as we know it.
What? We need monsters, and we need to name them. And we always have.
I think we kind of like to swim in that dark space. Right. I think that humans naturally, we do like dark things.
Critic Rachel Ho isn't surprised by Civil War's success at the box office.
We're living in very divisive times, especially our friends down south. It's quite tense, I think is the best word for it probably. So it makes sense that our entertainment is reflecting that reality.
Think about your lives. I'm sure one of you is going to realize that it's not all that great.
This author says apocalyptic scenarios are on the rise for good reason.
It really is like resetting everything. You're getting rid of the baggage. You're able to start anew, or perhaps you're able to have this this ideal future that mirrors in some ways the things you wish would happen.
As for Jay Baruchel, after staring into the abyss, he's found something surprising.
It's made me more of an optimist. We are prone to less diseases. We are more literate. We kill each other less than we ever have, which is crazy considering what a garbage fire it is out there, right? So as shitty as it is, and anecdotally especially, it is very shitty. This is the best it's ever been.
A silver lining for our apocalyptic obsessions. Eli Glasner, CBC News, Toronto.
And Darius Madave joins us now with a look at the forecast. And Darius, some of the things we've been seeing with the climate are almost nearing apocalyptic.
Yes, yeah. I picked this for a reason after I heard about the apocalypse story. This is probably the most concerning thing we're looking at right now. I mean, we have some extreme weather events happening around the world, extreme heat events, severe rain events in places like West Africa, the thunderstorms and tornadoes that happened in the US just now. But I think this is probably the most severe thing happening right now, which is the global surface temperatures, sea surface temperatures, which is, they're record-breaking. They've been record-breaking for over a year now, and just the sheer amount of red and orange on this map is startling, to say the least, especially as we head into hurricane season where, so we'll watch this come back around, Hurricane Alley, as it's often called, where we see a lot of those hurricanes develop, is still bright red. So something to keep an eye on. Don't want to, I don't know if it's apocalyptic, but it's getting there for sure. Now, let's take a look here where it's not very apocalyptic. We do have a weather warning up in the northeast for some very heavy snow, 5 to 15 centimeters of it. But down here on the coast, we're not seeing anything all that exciting. Those showers and flurries we've had are starting to taper off. I know that we were talking about how this was expected to be a wet week from Monday through Thursday, at least, just sort of a showery week. That's what it was looking like at the end of last week. Things have now changed, mostly sunny this week. So as we take a look at what's coming, you see a few more showers, a little bit more flurry activity in some places on the island and here on the here in the mainland, but generally drying out over the next few days. So the next major system that was expected to maybe make it here on Thursday is instead going to miss us and be deflected down south thanks to some high pressure sitting over the province. So instead, pretty calm over the next few days. If we do take a look, though, you'll see that in the northeast, we did have that activity up there starting to clear out. Now we have maybe some more periods of snow overnight tonight, but around 5 to 15 centimeters from this morning until tomorrow morning. So a very good dump of snow for the area, especially given the fire situation. There were some relatively strong winds this morning, but they have since calmed down. So again, a little bit of relief coming, especially as that good dump of snow has come with actually a very decent amount of precipitation, which has been, well needed and a long time in the making. Now, in terms of temperatures, staying relatively cool, a couple degrees below normal in the south today. Tomorrow, very similar, but temperatures do start to recover as we head into the end of this week. And if we take a look at our conditions across the province, still some activity tomorrow, mostly in the interior with that flurry activity. But again, this is all just like 30% chances of showers, very little activity. And in terms of a 5-day forecast, we really just have sunny days ahead until we get into the weekend. And then, as promised, Tanya, some more showers.
We'll focus on the up until Friday sunshine until we get there. Thanks, Darius.
Thank you.
Urban tree canopies are on the decline in Metro Vancouver. That's despite the region's goal to have more areas shaded by trees by the year 2050. It comes alongside a push for greater housing densification. As Saurabh Sandhu reports, experts say it's a worrying sign and could lead to worsening climate emergencies.
A 2020 report by Metro Vancouver Regional District reveals leafy tree-lined neighborhoods like this are under threat, with tree canopies making up only 31% of the region, a decline from 2014.
If you look in the residential or other land uses, then you've got big empty bare spots, and where they have a much lower canopy, which means much increased mortality and vulnerability in heat dome kind of situations, heat waves.
The report is based on data collected between 2014 and 2020 across 21 Metro Vancouver municipalities. It also shows paved surfaces like roads have increased from 50% in 2014 to 54% in 2020, which some researchers say adds to already rising surface temperatures.
Urban tree canopy can reduce temperatures in the order of 10 to 12 to 13 degrees, and we are losing that.
The report says development such as that in single-family home neighborhoods with a significant amount of trees is expected to affect long-term canopy goals. It projects a further decrease over the next 20 to 30 years, and it does not account for the province's latest legislations aimed at encouraging high-density housing.
We don't have the guardrails on how we do development to ensure that we effectively integrate tree canopy and at-grade green infrastructure.
There's still time to include within the legislation and the guidelines and the standards to municipalities on densification.
Experts say some municipalities are struggling to find ways to stay green and protect from climate change while developing land for housing. Boston says it's also important to look abroad at global green initiatives.
Singapore is doing both. It's increasing density, increasing population, and growing its tree canopy.
The tree canopy in Metro Vancouver is assessed once every 6 years. The next round of data is expected to be collected in 2026 and will be presented in 2028. Saurabh Sandhu, CBC News, Vancouver.
Coming up, a dream come true for a 6-year-old boy who got to show off his dance moves on the big stage with one of his idols. We hear from him after the break.
Hi, I'm Amy Bell, and here's what's in your CBC Vancouver inbox.
With the changes to how Canada is able to access journalism online and on social media, we want to assure you that when you're looking for CBC News, you'll always be able to find us. Local news, breaking stories, and the latest from around the world is at your fingertips any time of the day with the free CBC News app and online at cbcnews.ca. For news you can trust, download the CBC News app and stay connected wherever you are.
A 6-year-old boy from Surrey experienced his dream come true after Punjabi superstar Diljit Dosanjh invited him on stage at a sold-out BC place.
Benit Brach is hearing what it was like for the young fan to get to perform in more than 50,000 people right alongside his idol.
Vibing and doing Bhangra on stage with Diljit Dosanjh, an unforgettable moment for Surrey's Anik Buller.
I like his dancing moves, and I love him. He's the best singer.
The 6-year-old sat high up on his dad's shoulders. Catching the eye of the singer, Diljit invited and carried Anik on stage.
What was it like for you to be up there?
Happy.
Tens of thousands cheered him on, and then another surprise.
And after when he danced, he gave me the jacket, and it's way too big on me.
It still looks really good on you.
And it's a skeleton jacket.
It was remarkable. I mean, we were shaking, we were crying, we had tears, text messages.
His dad says it's a moment his son has long manifested.
Through his Bhangra lessons, every time he comes home, he pretended that he was on stage with Diljit, so wanted to dress up like Diljit.
Anik started taking Bhangra classes about a year ago. His talent and smile shined bright as Diljit made history in BC Place. He's the first Punjabi artist to headline the stadium with a sold-out show for his North American Dil Illuminati tour. The venue holds more than 50,000 people. And as artists like Diljit bring their music to the mainstream, the impact goes a long way, even for fans as young as Anik.
A lot of these artists are some of the biggest artists in the world. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of like an awakening to the global impact that is South Asian music, which, by the way, has almost entirely all of its roots here in British Columbia, in Vancouver, in Surrey.
An electric atmosphere and an unforgettable milestone for Barinder's son.
Having someone like Diljit sold out 50,000 people for my son to embrace his culture, his heritage, his language was something so wonderful and just speaks to what Diljit has done globally.
Their moments shared on stage have gone viral on social media. Anik says Diljit inspires him, and he had a lot of
fun.
Anik hopes to keep dancing his heart out on the stage and off. Benit Brach, CBC News, Vancouver.
Thanks for being with us tonight on CBC Vancouver News at 6. You can watch this newscast on CBC Gem, our free app, as well as on YouTube and our website at cbc.ca/BC.
We'll be back with your next local newscast at 11 o'clock tonight, right after the National. Have a great night.